Enemy at the gates. We are talking about what is going on with the U.S.-Israel invasion of sorts. We're looking at the past history, present, and future with Section 224 of the integration of the U.S. military with the Israelis. Joining me today is a special guest, Zach Costello. Stay tuned for an awesome show. Zach Costello, from many of you know him. He's coming from the shadows. We were talking about his lighting in the back. It's kind of like just characteristic of the Zach Costello show, right? You got it's that dark coming from the shadows, speaking truth to the world. You've obviously gained just a large following, specifically after the whole Charlie Kirk. You're one of the top 3 to 5 people out there doing the work to see who killed our friend, and we so appreciate it. You know, you were at our event, and we know each other. We're good friends now, so glad you're here with us, Zach. You just got back from Rome, right?
I did. Yeah. Thanks for having me, John. Yep. My wife and I just had about a week-long vacation, 2 days in Assisi, Italy, and then about 4 days in Rome. It was awesome. We're part of an organization that basically is an arm directly from the Vatican, which is pretty cool. That is responsible for spreading Catholic social teaching throughout America and the rest of the world. So it was a couple days of conferences in Rome, and then we got very cool, a private audience, about the group of 150 of us. We had mass at St. Peter's Basilica at the altar of the chair, which was an incredible experience. And then we had a private audience with Pope Leo. So it was very cool.
No way. That's like that's a show all in of itself. So you had audience with the Holy Father. What's the organization called, by the way, that you do with?
It's basically the foundation for the Pro Sentimus Annus, which is the encyclical from Pope Leo the 13th. So it was actually very cool because we went to this conference, and it was immediately after Pope Leo the 14th had published the encyclical on AI and the importance of human dignity. So it was actually pretty cool to have both of those kind of encyclicals to go off of. Now, there were a lot of speakers from the European Union and the UN, and there was, a lot of criticism about America and all that. So, I had to get through and battle through some of that stuff. But at the same time, it was an awesome experience. And my wife and I got to enjoy.
Like, were you actually voice your whatever opinion on the matter, or no?
There were the opportunities for some Q&A. I did not engage. I stayed quiet for this first go around. Maybe in future years I'll speak up.
That's pretty amazing. Just going to Rome in general is what an honor, what a grace. I lived there for 5 years, so I know it very, very well. The big question.
I had been there when I was 21, 22. Actually, I think it was younger than that. I think I was 19 or 20. My wife studied abroad, and I went to visit her, and we went to Rome for about 3 days. But, being 19, 20, you don't take anything too seriously at that point in your life. So I was more concerned with, having fun and not taking it all in. But this go around, just being there, me and her, we were able to, our hotel was located probably, 100 yards from the Vatican. But if you're not familiar with Rome, you can literally walk to so many places within 5 miles of that location. So being able to walk the streets of Rome, we visited all 4 of the 4 major papal basilicas while we were there. Just the amount of Christian history that is there is overwhelming, but it's incredibly inspiring. I mean, I left there just being like, man, like I just want to be a part of all of this. Is what
absolutely. Did you do the Scavi tour, which is the tour that goes underneath the basilica and you can see St. Peter's bones?
We didn't get to do that. No.
It's one of the,
that would be amazing.
Make a point, try to get you got to reserve it in advance, and it's just it's really a special. You get to see actually the bones of St. Peter, right?
Yeah. We saw a few tombs. We saw St. Paul behind the wall, so his tomb is there. I mean, obviously St. Peter's tomb is at St. Peter's. We also, while we were in Assisi, we went to the Basilica of San Francesco from St. Francis of Assisi, and we saw his tomb down there as well. So yeah, very cool.
Isn't his body exposed right now, right?
It's not, no, but Carlos Acutis is actually exposed at St. Clair's in Assisi, so we were able to see that.
Incredible. Maybe it was a recent. I think they just exhumed the body of Francis maybe like a month ago. I saw pictures of it online. It was the first time in 800
I didn't realize
years.
That we must have Well, it's the 800-year anniversary of his death this year, so we must have just missed that. Darn it.
Doggone. Have to wait for the next 800 years to get to exhume the body again, Zach. But
I
the big question here, man.
Go around.
So you're one of the prominent people out there that's being attacked by the Zionist lobby. You took an international trip. Did you inform the Zionist lobby that you would make an international trip? Because apparently the thing is right now, people like Candace and others, when they go overseas, there's all this conspiracy. What are they doing? What are they doing overseas? So it was just strictly a pilgrimage, correct?
Oh, I announced it. And, you had the Zionist lobby and some of our good friends over on that side. Obviously I say that sarcastically.
Right.
Yeah, they caught wind of me going overseas, and they believe that I'm part of some Catholic psyop that, I'll let they can go ahead and chase down that rabbit hole. It was literally just a planned vacation that my wife and I had as a part of this group, which we were invited to this year. And it just so happens they have an annual private audience with the Pope. They have this annual conference, and this is like the gap window year that my wife and I would be able to go, because my wife is expecting our 6th. And right now, our youngest out of the womb is 3 years old. So this was a window to where we were like, you know what? Like, we could probably get there this year, but it's probably going to be another 3 years since we're able to again. So it literally just worked out for us.
Awesome.
But yes, the Zionist lobby thinks that it's some, big Catholic psyop,
but it's not. You run a pilgrimage.
Are all involved in something. Yeah, you guys are involved for sure. So yeah, you know how it is. I'm preaching to the choir here.
Absolutely. No, glad you clarified that for the record. But no, Rome is an awesome spot. Totally encouraged as a family. I know it's hard to get overseas sometimes, but whatever you can do, there's so many local pilgrimages that you can do as families here in the United States. We always talk about Champion Shrine in Wisconsin, where Our Lady appeared. Highly recommend going there. And so yeah, it's a great experience. So let's talk about the show topic today. Enemy at the gates. I think it's the best way to phrase, kind of summarize what's going on. Either enemy at the gates or synagogue of Satan of sorts, right? What do we mean by synagogue of Satan? Because that's used a lot in recent times. Obviously originates from sacred scripture, from Revelation. It's used twice, Revelations 2:9 and Revelations 3:9. Like literally the Greek is synagoga to satana, and it means gathering of the gathering synagogue of Satan, right? The liar, right? And what is, people automatically think, are you just saying Israel is a synagogue of Satan? No, not necessarily. Literally, it means to be part of, you're linked with the enemy. Now, as Catholics, how are we linked with the enemy? It's our state of grace, right? If you're in the state of grace, you're part of the synagogue of Jesus Christ. If you're not, you're with Satan, right? So, and we're going to end at the end of the show talking about how to be part of the synagogue of Christ, which is devotion to his sacred heart. But with regards to the synagogue of Satan, how it manifests itself today in society, in the geopolitical world that we are in, let's talk about what's happening inside America. And Zach, you're an expert on this topic. We've been covering it. It's like the thing of the day. It's one of our battles that we're fighting here as Americans. Is this infiltration of our own country, right? How it's come across. And this is not just any other country. This is a country that barely, some of the top leaders are not even, believers necessarily, right? Did you see Larry Ellison? Obviously, he's the biggest funder of the IDF. His son bought TikTok. But did you know, Zach, he's actually an avowed atheist. So we always hear, yeah.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. And I just want to, your description of what the synagogue of Satan actually is, and and you use the term enemy, and I would also, a term that I like to use when I'm discerning these different things is adversary, and basically it's any of these ideologies that are not of Christ that we as Christians need to be on the lookout for. And you mentioned, Judaism is one, but there are certainly others. I talk about Judaism, feminism, we have wokeism, leftism, Islam. Hinduism, Buddhism, like the atheism. There's no, the difference. What it comes down to is an ideology. Is it an adversary to Christ, or is it of Christ? And I think that is ultimately where we as Christians just need to be crystal clear. And where my position is it's not anything personal toward any of these other belief systems. I mean, ultimately, it's just a matter of me as a Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ is the way and the truth and the life. And I believe him when he says that no one can get to the Father except through him. And I believe that a life aligned as a Christian, whether it be an individual or a nation, is the best way to live. It allows us to build thriving and stable societies. It produces thriving and stable individuals, families, organizations, societies, and nations, ultimately is what it comes down to. So we as Christians just need to be on the lookout of any conflicting ideology that is of Christ. And that is, when we say the synagogue of Satan, we are simply just talking about the enemy or the adversary to that of the Logos, which is Jesus Christ.
It's well said, completely agree. And that needs to be reaffirmed even more so today, because there's such this false ecumenism out there, right? That there are other pathways to heaven outside of Christ, right? But it's Christ alone. Homework for everyone later on, go look at the actual passages from the book of Revelation, where it's talking about how is it used? How did St. John use that, right? He's obviously the writer of Revelation. Zach, on your next pilgrimage, this is where you got to go. Go to the spot where the book of Revelation was written. Patmos. That would be an amazing trip. It's insane. Been there once. That's a total adventure story for another day. But it's, you arrive to Patmos, small island, and then you kind of go up to the top of the island, and then you descend down into this cave. And in the cave, it was like a fluke, like downtime for tourism. And so I ended up being in the cave with just me and my brother and nobody else. And this cave is like literally where he wrote Revelation. Like you can see the actual like stone desk where he wrote this, right? Wow. So imagine St. John, it was on a Sunday morning writing from the book of Revelation, these verses. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know about the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. So anyway, great thing to meditate on. And again, with the understanding that when I'm outside the state of grace, I am part of the synagogue of Satan. Correct. But specifically today, let's look at enemy at the gates. How, as a country, are we being? It's like an invasion. There's different invasions. You could talk about CCP, Islam on a different day. Maybe we will. But today, let's zero in on that Zionist invasion in America, right? And let's frame that into three different sets. What's happened in the past, what's going on in the present, and what's in the future. And Zach and I are sounding the alarm on that and getting some feedback. So US's Liberty, did you see that, the clip from Thomas Massey?
I did. Yes.
Let's play back kind of and get some comment on that, because that's 59 years ago on June 8th. It was the anniversary of the attack on the USS Liberty. Okay. Just really quickly about this attack before we play the clip. 59 years ago today, 34 brave American sailors paid the ultimate price, along with the 170 wounded. Think about that. 34 American sailors, 170 wounded while serving aboard the USS Liberty. What the heck happened? Israeli fighters. It's funny. I posted this on LinkedIn, and I just thought everyone kind of knew this, but I already got comments on this. Like, I've never heard about that before. Amazing. Israeli fighters strafed, torpedoed, dropped napalm upon our defenseless boys as they desperately waved the American flag to our greatest allies. American sailors, carriers, sat idly by as desperate calls for help went unanswered. Roger Stone, the great historian, noted that President Lyndon Johnson, crazy, personally gave the okay for this attack on the USS Liberty. For 6 decades, the story has not been told, and we're talking about it today. And we are committing ourselves to a true America first patriotism, theologically rooted in the 4th commandment, honor thy father and mother. Let's play the clip from Thomas Massey, who had the courage to go on the House floor 2 days ago and draw attention to these survivors.
Day on June 8th, they started the day. The visibility was unlimited. The American flag was flying proudly on the USS Liberty. More planes came from Israel to surveil the boat, the ship. And they thought they were in good shape, but what happened next surprised them all. French Mirage jets showed up, and for 25 minutes, strafed and attacked the USS Liberty. They shot rockets. They shot 30-millimeter cannons into the hull and into the ship. They even dropped napalm on the bridge of the ship. This was an effort to kill everybody on board. There was no intention of taking prisoners. After the 25 grueling minutes of attack on this virtually unarmed ship, and they thought things were over and they could recover, the torpedo boats showed up, 3 torpedo boats. They launched 4 torpedoes. One of them hit the hull of the USS Liberty and killed 25 people instantly. It blew a 40-foot by 40-foot hole in the side of this ship. They were intent on sinking it. But they were also intent on not having a single survivor. According to eyewitness accounts, the Israelis machine gunned the lifeboats that they put down. They machine gunned the firefighters who were on the deck. They were bringing the wounded and the dead to the mess hall to triage them. They had one doctor who was trying to help them all, put a few stitches in. It was harrowing, and it's amazing. If not for that crew, that boat would have sunk that day. But it still wasn't over. Helicopters showed up, combat helicopters. And the USS Liberty, even though their signals were being jammed by the Israelis, got a signal out. And there were ships that tried to respond. The USS Saratoga, the USS America sent planes. Both of them sent planes to help the USS Liberty. And something happened that's never happened before. A ship under attack, the planes were recalled. This has never happened before. And they sat there for 17 hours. 34 dead, 174 wounded, out of 294 crew members.
Zach, I know you're obviously very well aware of this historical incident. Thoughts on this whole thing, and also just specifically about this, how it's been silenced over these past decades?
Well, and I think that last point that you just made there, John, is one of the most important points regarding this whole entire thing. I mean, what we've seen now, because of this foreign country infiltration, which also is a threat to us as Christians, because how it's manifested itself also too as a religious attack. They are using a certain religion in order to infiltrate our country, whether it be America or America's Christians. But what it comes down to is this, is what we need to be very aware of as it relates to all this, and caused even myself to question, like, what are these things that I have learned throughout history, and are they true, or have I been told something that someone else has wanted me to believe? And the USS Liberty is a prime example. But we also need to go back and question 9/11 and Islamophobia. Candace Owens on her show yesterday talked about the Bolshevik Revolution and Russia, and whether or not we're being told the truth about, big scary Russia over there. Like, is that true? Or are we living in this bubble where we are being fed information by different parties, by different entities that want us to believe certain things about our history? Like, we have to, at this point in American history, discern whether or not what we've been told about our past is true, or if it's been propaganda in order to push a certain agenda. As it relates to this USS Liberty, what I find very interesting and very fascinating is that you can have Thomas Massey deliver these facts, and a common sense person would be like, well, timing wise, how does this make any sense? Like, if you have these surveillance planes going around this ship, you have the American flag flying high, like, wouldn't they at least notice this was an American ship? And then you have a second round of an attack on the ship, and then you have a third round of torpedo bombers coming in. Like, it's like, at some point, don't you realize that this is an American ship? So this Absolutely. Is just a common sense perspective on just the timing of how the attack played out. But then what I also find somewhat, funny is not the right term to use here, but ironic, is that they will take, a historian's account on what happened at the USS Liberty, but then they'll take, the 25 accounts of the survivors that were actually there on the ship and be like, oh, no, they're just a bunch of conspiracy theorists. None of that really matters. It's like, well, actually, like, I think we probably should take what some of them are saying seriously, right? But I think as it relates to this whole broader picture, and I think this is what we're facing right now, is there has to be a serious discernment of what is going on and what we're being told as it relates to what is actually true and what's not.
So well said. You know, the COVID-19 generation, which is what we are today. Okay. We lived through one of the biggest, psyops, right, in the past 5 years. We have a duty for future generations, right, to do exactly what you just said. Ask those questions, re-examine. We're old enough, we're smart enough to know now that the powers that be have such power to pull the wool over our eyes and feed us the narrative that we want, right? Starting with what Hollywood's done for decades, right? Their films are so, they're CIA funny in a lot of those films, which allow for them to get the message out that they want. We got to ask those questions, right? You know, we're still, 65 years later, waiting for the full release of the JFK files. And, so completely agree. And I saw Jeremy Boring's kind of push back on people who want to make a big deal about the U.S.'s liberty on the 60th anniversary. Like, what's the big deal? He says, we've had friendly fire incidents all over Vietnam 60 years ago. We never talk about them. It's just another friendly fire incident. Horrible, yes, but you know what? Let's move on. Stop using it as a propaganda piece to talk about how much you hate Israel. But here is the point. It was not a friendly fire incident, okay? Name any one of those Vietnam incidents, like where they actually have American flags, we're waving the American flag to them, okay? And also, even if it was a mistake, which clearly it wasn't, our rules of war, you don't shoot at lifeboats, okay?
Right.
You don't shoot at lifeboats.
Right.
How about we talk about that?
Right.
So...
Right, which then also gets to the point. I know we will talk about this here at some point, which just that highlights whether or not we're in alignment from a value standpoint between what our values and what we want to be about in America versus what the state government of Israel is about and how they engage enemies in warfare. Right.
Let's go there right now. So, three different parts of this whole Zionist kind of invasion. We talk about the past, U.S. liberty. Let's talk about the present. About our specific goals. We are, as you go to the gas pump today, right now, prices, airplane flights, you name it, are incredibly expensive. Why? Because there's a blockade right now in the Straits of Hormuz. Okay? So we're at war with Iran. It's a war, as Secretary Marco Rubio spilled out on Fox News early on in the conflict, said, look, it was Israel which prompted us to attack first. We knew they were going to attack Iran. So if we didn't attack Iran first, then Iran would have attacked our U.S. bases. We have been pulled into this conflict because of them. They do not want peace. They need a regime change in Iran. They sucked us into the war, and we're feeling the effects of it. I mean, what are your general thoughts as you, Zach, as every other day, it's another post from the president. We're this close to an Iranian deal. We're this close. Here we are. I mean, what are your general thoughts, or what did you, even overseas? That'd be interesting. Did you have any conversations in Italy with other Europeans about what's going on here?
So, just to...
So what did Pope Leo tell you? I'm joking.
Well, I think we all know Pope Leo's stance.
There you go.
And it stands in opposition to what President Trump and the American government are carrying out here. But,
right.
I want to touch on what you said about, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, he accidentally came out and told us all the truth right off the bat. And then you have the New York Times article, which talks about how, Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, and his head of Mossad, David Barnea, sat in the room with President Trump and
situation room, the most sacred room at the front of the desk. Yeah, keep
absolutely
going.
With his whole cabinet, with most of his cabinet. Ironically, J.D. Vance was not present for that meeting, conveniently for the state government of Israel. But ultimately what they did is they laid out a 4-point plan, or which they basically outlined to President Trump as being a plan that had a very high likelihood of success. And it turned out, we come to find after the fact that we had U.S. Congress people by name Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, who had spent time lobbying and teaching, educating the Israeli state government on how to sway President Trump into this war and how to stoke his ego and how to emotionally gaslight him. And what happened is that we engaged in this war based off of poor and bad intelligence from the Israelis. And now, ever since, because everything that everything that the critics, everything that Trump's cabinet, in fact, told him was wrong about the intelligence ended up coming to fruition and coming true. So now we're in this situation where this is just constant spin and damage control, trying to save face, which President Trump has been trying to do from this entire situation, saying things like, oh, they're just about to surrender. The war is going to end. We are going to win here. The Strait of Hormuz will open. This is just a temporary setback. We will get through this. All of these things are just, it's just media spin and propaganda. And I love what you said about all of us having been through COVID. Here's the thing. You see this from the current administration, the previous one and the one we have now. You see it from an organization like the current Turning Point USA. Like, you see it across the board in the political spectrum when it comes to these different organizations or political leaders. Spin does not work on the American people anymore. Okay? We can see right through it. We see right through it. Authenticity and true transparency is what wins. That is what everybody is after. And whether you like it or not, President Trump actually won this election because everyone did believe that he was authentic. And we did believe this administration was going to be transparent. Fast forward, and we've come to find that they've betrayed those promises, very important ones, that they've made to us, and they've not been that way. And then as it relates to this entire concept that we're talking about here, as far as infiltration goes, a part of the spin here is to make it so President Trump doesn't look like he's controlled by this foreign nation state of Israel, when in reality, based on what we see, based on all of the data and all of the information that the everyday American person can see, and the engagement in this war, which is not a just war. It's you know, we're in a situation where, again, we're involved in a Middle Eastern quagmire, which is another just method to stoke this military industrial complex to get the rich and powerful in this country richer and more powerful, right? That's the whole point of it. I'm convinced, and I don't want to go off on this tangent very much right now, but I'm convinced that every time President Trump comes out and says something positive about the war, you watch the reaction to the markets. I actually believe that to be some form of like money grab that they're using to continue to finance these things. But that's a different topic for a different time.
It's not necessarily, it's a great topic because it's not necessarily off the mark, because a lot of the posts from President Trump about we're on the verge of a deal happen right before the markets open.
100%. And you have individuals that are positioned to get richer and more powerful off of those specific announcements. So again, I just think it's all spin. I think it's all spin. It's all them trying to save face, because when in reality, they have been manipulated and controlled by this infiltrator, which is what we're talking about right now.
The golden question, one thing everyone is really trying to figure out, is what happened to the man that we worked so hard to elect. President Trump survived 2 assassination attempts, right? And then a year later is where he is today. What is going on? Because there's so much, it's just a total reversal on a lot of these key points, specifically bringing us into this war. You had that story, which was last week. I wanted to get your comments on that too. You know, the famous phone call, right? President Trump and Netanyahu had this phone call about a week ago, okay, where although no transcript of the call has been made available to the public, one source summed up the president's remarks to Netanyahu as follows: "You're effing crazy. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving I'm saving your butt. Everyone hates you now. Everyone hates Israel because of this." Another source said Trump yelled at one point, "What the F are you doing?" Basically, this was later confirmed by President Trump himself, who said, yeah, this actually did happen. This is not just hearsay. So there was this tense thing. But what's crazy about this whole incident, this phone call, was they had the call, and then there was 2 contradictory statements posted on this. Let's put the clip 3 on there so you can see if the people can see this. You had Benjamin Netanyahu who posted this, or Trump. "I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu today asking him not to go into a major raid of Beirut, Lebanon. He turned his troops around. Thank you, Bibi. I also had a conversation with representatives of leaders of Hezbollah, and they agreed to stop shooting at Israel and its soldiers. Let's see how long that lasts. Hopefully it will be for eternity, President Donald Trump." And then you had Bibi post the exact opposite statement. "Tonight I spoke with President Trump and told him that if Hezbollah does not cease attacking our cities and citizens, Israel will attack terror targets in Beirut." stance of ours remains unchanged. In parallel, the IDF will continue to operate as planned in southern Lebanon. So, talk is cheap, actions say everything. What do you think about all this?
I mean, the last line that you said right there, talk is cheap. You know, what we have here is, we have President Trump going on an interview saying that, I said that to Bibi. Look how strong I am. I said that. But then he goes on to say, well, we're kind of like brothers. I have a really good relationship with him. Like, this is how we can talk to each other. And then you have, then the news that also breaks is then you have obviously President Trump saying one thing and then Bibi Netanyahu coming out and saying the other. One note I want to say about that is you have an individual like Joe Kent who has been right on the mark with everything that he has said regarding the time from the time of his resignation all the way on. Despite all of the slander and lies that have been said about him, he has not missed. Like, he's batting 1,000 when it comes to this Iran war talking points, right? Everything that he said was going to happen is exactly what happened, right? So, you have President Trump that came out and bashed him for not knowing, what he was doing or what he was talking about. In reality, you just see like everything that he has said, like, go back and look at it. Go back and look at his tweets. He literally said exactly what was going to happen, and it has all played out that way ever since. But what I just find funny, and I know this is another segue into another one of the topics that we're going to cover, is that you have President Trump coming out and saying something like that, so firm against Bibi Netanyahu, so tough, so firm, like, look who I am. I can talk to Bibi like this. Well, then you have Bibi Netanyahu just saying, like, now we're just going to continue to bomb southern Lebanon. Like, we're just going to continue to do that. We don't care what you have to say, President Trump or America. We are going to continue to do that. It doesn't matter what type of ceasefire is in place. And I say that because Joe Kent specifically said that one of the biggest threats to the ceasefire was the behavior of Israel and them not abiding by it because they have a history of doing so. So he turned out to be 100% correct on that point. But then finally, what I find even more interesting is that, yes, okay, fine. You have President Trump saying that about Bibi Netanyahu, but then the same week, news is coming out how America is literally aligning our military with the state government of Israel. So it's like, which is it, President Trump? Because you have a prime minister here that if everybody in America hates and is doing a whole bunch of stupid stuff, why the heck then are we pushing legislation that is going to align the American military with the Israeli military? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't follow. So like you said,
something is there. There's a compromise of sorts. I mean, what other explanation is there? Like, President Trump, we want you to succeed. We voted for you. You were the better candidate by far. Like, we want this country to be great. And
I stand by that statement too. Like, I don't think Kamala Harris is a better option. Like, I don't think that at all.
Yeah.
But I want President Trump to succeed. It just seems like he is continually, I mean, I've been using this term a lot lately, just stepping on a rake that keeps smashing him in the face. Like, he needs to stop doing that.
The rake was stepped on perhaps just once, and it was before the election in October when he got the biggest check of his candidacy from Miriam Adelson, $250 million.
There you go.
So it's that was, who knows? But there's a lot there. We got to keep asking the questions. We absolutely have to, because it's not helping America and not helping the average American citizen. But going further, like, you and I are both Catholics, like, yeah, we don't want to be in a war, an unjust war. We agree with Pope Leo on what this war is unjust, right? Doesn't meet the standards of Catholic just war theory. At least I don't think so. There's that. We also, as just regular guys in this country, do not want to be paying more prices because of the blockade. But deeper, here's where, and we're gonna shift to southern Lebanon. We are shouting from the rooftops, because we're not just engaging with a country, I don't know, like Poland, okay, that's got wants to go into a different territory, and it's like, whatever. This is a country that just has completed the genocide in Gaza, which has totally, suspicious circumstances of how it all played out. I want to just really quickly, before we go to Lebanon, let's remind the audience about what our dear friend Charlie had to say regarding this. Let's put up their clip 4. I'm going to read what Charlie had to say about October 7th. It's so good to remember this. Charlie said, "I was smeared as an anti-Semite and Holocaust denier for even approaching this topic. Turns out I was onto something. Israel officials attained Hamas's battle plan for the October 7th terrorist attack more than a year before it happened. Documents, emails, and interviews show that. But Israeli military and intelligence officials dismissed the plan as aspirational, considering it too difficult for Hamas to carry out. The approximately 40-page document, which the Israeli authorities codenamed Jericho Wall, outlined point by point exactly the kind of devastating invasion that led to the deaths of about 1,200 people. The translated document, which is reviewed by the New York Times, did not set a date for the attack, but described a methodical assault. Okay, so they knew about this. We also know about the stand-down orders that were given to Israeli soldiers. So it was an attack that seems to have been allowed. Okay, followed by the absolute horrific genocide of the Gazan people that continues to this day. So that's what they've done since October 7th. But what's going on in southern Lebanon today, and why we specifically care about that, is because that's where our fellow Christians are at, okay? And they are not stopping. The IDF is intent for this whole war to expand there and bring their death and destruction that they brought to Gaza. This story, which broke a week ago, comment on it, please, Zach. You have Israeli military storms Christian village in the West Bank while they were attempting to do a ceremony honoring the Blessed Mother. Okay. My friend Jason Jones, you might know him. He covers this so well. They had their ceremony. I think it was for, I want to say it was June or Friday, May 29th. They were honoring Our Lady. They were set up there. It's already a tough situation. And the IDF soldiers just busted in, broke up the celebration. And this also follows on the heels of the desecration of the crucifix, blah, blah, blah. So what do you think about this whole incursion into southern Lebanon?
What this speaks to is just the overall bigger picture, which I've been harping on now for some time, and I know you have as well, John, too, is that, again, it's a severe misalignment of values. This is a warmongering neocon state that will stop at nothing in order to accomplish their existential goal of surviving. And they can spin and they can put propaganda out there about how friendly they are to Christianity, or about how much they care about Christians in the Middle East or in America. But the fact is that their behavior, like the actual reality and what we see about reality, paints a much different picture. Whether it be the genocide they carried out in Gaza. And I find it very interesting that you shared that post from Charlie Kirk. I'll never forget, I'll never not remember what he told Patrick Bet-David when he first came out and said that. That's when he announced that was on the Patrick Bet-David podcast. And he literally said, I've been to Israel many times. I'm very aware of how efficient their security and their protection is of their citizens. He goes on to describe the hours and hours that it took for a response to that attack on October 7th. And he poses the question straight up, was there a stand down order? He says that straight up on the Patrick Bet-David podcast. And then he goes on to predict correctly that the goal of Israel is simply to carry out an ethnic cleansing. That's an exact quote. That's exactly what he said on Patrick Bet-David in Gaza. And he was 100% correct about that. And he was smeared and he was pressured by all of his, the true and correct term are Zionist donors who do not want you asking those questions because they do not want you to know the actual truth and the true history as things played out. What I want to drive the nail, on this fact, because what we are seeing right here in the present with the Israeli behavior is consistent with Israeli behavior in the past. But I want you to, the difference is now we have an alternative media. We have a culture where we are able to see things that people in the past were not able to see previously. So what we can see is actually like, oh, wait, like, wow, look at this. Look at what they're doing versus how they're trying to spin this and how they're trying to rewrite this history that's happening right before our eyes. Now just take what they're doing and then apply it back to those historical examples. And then what you have is a situation to where you're like, oh, wait, they've been doing this now for a while. And then you start to question like, okay, what about this situation? What about this situation? What about this situation? Tucker Carlson brought to light, the fact that, you're reading that post there from Charlie Kirk talking about how the Israeli government had the plans for October 7th well in advance. Well, you know who else had plans well in advance of an event happening? The U.S. government as it relates to 9/11. as Tucker Carlson exposed. So again, like these are just, and I'm not making any assumptions there as it relates to these things, but I think we have to discern and know the truth about how all of this is playing out, so that we as Christians especially can prudently engage and interpret the world and what is going on. And I think that is key. That is key, because you go back, and this is the last thing I'll say, but as it relates to the USS Liberty and what we were talking about, the truth matters, because when we know the truth, it then allows us to have the right and prudent and appropriate relationship with reality and with this country that we consider an ally right now. If we're gonna bury the truth about what happened, if we're just gonna say that it was an honest mistake when it actually wasn't, then that is going to result in decision making and an alliance that is imprudent, that is not smart, because we're not approaching reality in truth. And when we're not approaching reality in truth, this is precisely where disorder and evil and malevolence really infiltrates and shows its head. So, obviously I said a lot there. As it relates to the Christian protection in these different areas, ultimately, the very simple point that I can make is they don't care because they don't share the values, is what it comes down to.
They don't share the values. And as we sit back and fund this war, which is really, it's our money. Okay. It's our money that's being used to these bombs. You're probably a Christian or Catholic if you're watching the show. I want you to see right now, we're going to put images on the screen of the last predominantly Christian settlement in the Holy Land, which dates back to the time of Christ. Okay. It's in Tibet, right? And this, I think it was at the time of the 1948 when the state of Israel was created. I think the Christian population, at least in Bethlehem, was like 80%. Okay. That whole area. Now it's down to like 3 to 5%.
Yep.
So the last Christian settlement is under literally attack. And let's show images, play clip right there. You can see there, that's from Tibet. That's last night. Okay. That's Israeli. The IDF is actively invading and pushing out. And the way they do it, it's very conniving. It's not always that the soldiers themselves that are just going and creating or pushing people out. They have this thug group that it's like the brown shirts, right? That they're using. They're called settlers. That they're harassing the everyday Christians who are there, stealing their animals, breaking into their cars, getting in their faces, verbal abuse, physical abuse. There's been hundreds of wounded Lebanese there in that area, most of them Christian, and it just creates a whole atmosphere, burning their crops, their fields. Okay. It's very well organized. So it doesn't make the IDF the bad guys all the time, but they're this like militia, so to speak, of settlers is doing the dirty work and having a devastating effect. So as a Catholic, look, I'm concerned that's the Holy Land. Like, we of all people have a right to the sacred grounds where Jesus Christ walked. And we're seeing it destroyed before our eyes. I mean, that rubs me the wrong way, right, Zach? It's a travesty.
I mean, it gives you what you can say, a little bit more empathy for what the Crusades were trying to accomplish.
Yep, absolutely.
You know what I mean? But
yep.
Look, I mean, here's what it comes out, and I've shared stats about this. Like you mentioned that, you mentioned Bethlehem, right? Being 80% Christian, right? And here's an example of what they do to try to change the history on us. So pre-1948, the Christian population in Bethlehem was about 80%. It was a very strong Christian population. Mm-hmm. After 1948, when you had basically all of the Jews, you can say, move into the Holy Land, the percentage dropped significantly. It dropped significantly, and it has been declining for a long time, but maybe it has slightly increased over the previous years. And when you look at like a current numbers standpoint and you look at those percentages, ultimately from pre-1948 to now, the total Christian population in Bethlehem is actually lower than it was in pre-1948. And when you look at general population growth across the world, the numbers are actually abysmal. But what they do, this is how they try to spin it. What they'll do is they'll say, oh, no. Israel's very friendly to Christians because in 1948, the Christian population was like 10%. And now it's like 15%. They conveniently leave out the fact that pre-1948, it was at 80%, right? So it's like, so they'll use this argument, say, no, the Christian population is actually growing, when in reality, in the pre-1948 state, which is the number that I think you should use in this argument, the numbers aren't even close. And it actually shows a much more negative view and outlook as it relates to the Christian population in the Holy Land. So no, I don't think that everything is sunshine and rainbows as it relates to Christianity in the Middle East. Absolutely not. I think you have two conflicting ideologies that are actually pretty hostile to Christianity over there when it all comes down to it.
I mean, they are. It's just, what was it, Palm Sunday, where we were, our cardinal, the Pizza Bala, wasn't even allowed to celebrate the sacred liturgies there on Palm Sunday, and he was turned away. So yeah, there is.
And the true colors will come out. The true colors will come out with a situation like that, with the closing of that church for Pizza Bala, and it'll also the true colors come out when you have the desecration of the crucifix. The true colors come out with what you just showed there in Tibet, and but again, you have the political machine that will come out and do the spin, and you'll have Bibi Netanyahu say, well, this is absolutely unacceptable, and they'll say the things, but then at the same time, the behavior leaks through the cracks, and that's where we all see it.
We have a spiritual duty as members of the mystical body of Christ to speak up wherever our fellow Christians are being persecuted, whether that's in China, Israel, Holy Land, Iran, wherever it is, right? We have to defend it. And also on a secondary note, we as Americans, because we have been given a lot in this country, we have a free speech for the moment, okay? And it does work. When we did our first Catholic Champion Crusade, Zach is kind of crazy. We went to college, university, and University of Tennessee, and our whole idea is to basically engage the students, not so much on converting them to conservative principles. Charlie Kirk already did that in large part, but it's kind of to bring them the full distance now into the faith, the one true faith. So we had a conversation about the faith. We had a priest there. We prayed the rosary together. It was our first one, and we talked about the theological implications of Zionism and how the Catholic Church sees that. Now, we did it for the event there. We posted online. We had, it was our first one. Now, we got a message the next day from, get this, from somebody it was on Instagram, DM post, from someone in Bethlehem who heard about what we did. He was a Christian, sent us a message and said, thank you guys for taking a stand and talking about this stuff, because we really look to basically you, the Americans, to speak up and defend us for what's going on here. And he said, this is kind of cool. He said, tomorrow I'm going to go down to the sacred crypt and offer prayers for you and your work. The crypt being where Jesus Christ was born, right? Mm-hmm. So our voices really, truly have an effect. We as Americans have to be speaking up, and I think it's important to do so. Speaking of voices, okay, it's time to sound the alarm. This is like Paul Revere level. Paul Revere obviously warned about the attack of the British on Lexington and Concord and saved the day 250 years ago, or 251 years ago when he did that, 1775. Similar Paul Revere kind of warning that Zach and I are just need to get to your attention. Okay. We need to get this to our members of Congress. You already alluded to it early on. There's this thing, people. Okay. I was unfamiliar with it. I'm more involved in the political arena, but I was unaware. And there's this thing called the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2027. Okay. When they approve our budget, right, for the defense bill. And in section, I printed it up. It's like 400 pages. In the section 224, right over here, everything looks normal, I guess, okay, with the different programs which we're going to be funding. But there's something called section 224, which says the United States Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative. Section 224, titled by the U.S. Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative, would require the Secretary of Defense to designate an executive agent responsible for synchronizing cooperative efforts between the U.S. and Israel, including bilateral defense technology research, development, testing, integration, blah, blah, blah. It would accomplish this with the following key points. Number one, identifying jointly developed or Israeli origin technologies with operation utility for potential integration into U.S. systems. It would facilitate the transition of technologies from research and development into procurement and acquisition pathways. I mean, there's different levels. What this means, like translated for the average lay person out there, is in 2028, what's going to expire? The famous agreement that we've had since the Obama era, where we've given Israel $3.8 billion every single year. Okay. Now, Bibi and that government over there understand that time is running out because we, the young people, have woken up, okay, to what's going on here. We don't like funding over there. We don't want to send our money. They know they're going to be losing that money very, very soon. Okay. So you do the math over the past decade, that's about 30 to 40 billion dollars that we've sent that way. So what are they're trying to preemptively bake into, assuming the money is going to stop going there directly, this joint alignment with our military and the IDF, which has just tremendous consequences. What are your first thoughts when you saw that come up, Zach?
Well, I mean, when I first saw it came up, I mean, I was, of course, extremely alarmed. I mean, when it comes down to it, you know, as I align more with the America First political philosophy, just given what we have been through, especially over the last 10 years, okay? My whole political philosophy is that when it comes to America, I desire for America to remain a safe haven for Christianity. And the First Amendment and freedom of religion allows a belief system, or what I believe to be the truth, which is Christianity, to survive and to thrive.
Yep.
And I don't believe that America should force Christianity through government. I don't believe in Christianity being the state religion. No, I align with the First Amendment that there should be no state religion. And ultimately what the founders of America believed is that if we allow for a free culture, freedom of religion, and freedom of speech, then the truth would rise to the top. That's what the founders envisioned. That's what they believed. So I align with that. What we cannot have happen as it relates to all of this is to America must remain sovereign. Like, we must remain sovereign so that we can protect these values. And I see this as an infringement on truly American sovereignty. Like, yes, we can have alliances with countries. We can also enter into treaties with other countries that are in America's best interest. I cannot wrap my head around the fact as to why we would treat the state government of Israel, which is a separate foreign nation state, which is its own sovereign country, as to why we would merge and share resources and what we have with them. Like, I don't see the true benefit to America. Like, if you're going to say, like, okay, in this scenario, Israel then becomes like a Puerto Rico and becomes an American territory, that's one thing. We can have that conversation. But at the same time, it's like, if we are going to align ourselves with a foreign country and share intelligence and merge our military, especially with a country, and we've been talking about this at length, that does not share our values, that is willing to do things in war or on the foreign stage that we ourselves are not okay with or not willing to do, I don't see, other than being bought and paid for, I don't see how this can be a good and positive move for America. I don't see it. I don't see it. And they'll turn around and say, like, oh, well, they share a lot of intelligence with us. There's ROI. We give them a gift card that allows them to come back and pay all of these government contractors, these defense contractors, which, by the way, all of these politicians and all these big and powerful rich people all have their hands in the pockets of as well. But, you know, it's okay. It's okay. We get a return on intelligence and we get a return on American investment. It provides jobs. It's like, no, I'm done with that. I think that we can survive without them, and we don't need to be doing things like this. And it's crazy to me that it seems like that perspective is of the minority of people. I think that is one of the things that's extremely alarming to me.
That's what the critics of this, or ones who are defending this principle, basically are saying. They'll want to say, number one, the IDF, the Israelis have incredible technology. We need what they have for us. Okay. Joe Kent had an awesome response to that. He said basically, like, look, number one, we're Silicon Valley. We're the United States of America. Like, give me a break. Okay. We should be able to produce this. We have $1 trillion in our defense bill every single year. I think we can figure this out. Secondly, we've been at war for 20 years, 25 years since the turn. Like, I'm sure our systems are so down perfected. And if they're not, let's get better. Okay. So, and more importantly, he says, like, look, if there is by chance some specific Israeli technology that we desperately need, and that's awesome, here's what you do. You do a one-off trade, and that's it. You don't bake it in permanently into this bill, which is going to do. Okay. The second objection and point that I think is really, really concerning is Joe also points out that this goes deeper than just, okay, we're all linked. We have this shared agreement. What will happen is what you kind of alluded on was with the contracts. Okay. This will enable Israelis to get those government contracts first at the federal level. And then what they'll be doing, they'll start to build manufacturing plants in local states, right? Thereby working deals with the local politicians and senators to bring Israeli industry into the states, thereby having something on the local center. Like, look, we'll bring industry to your state because we have this contract, this government contract. Do you see what this is? It's such a backdoor invasion. It truly is an invasion. And, this is not, this goes against ultimately, I think, and this is what we say when we say America first, for me anyways, it's where does patriotism originate from? Honor thy father and mother. It's the fourth commandment. Okay. It does not say honor thy father and mother and the crazy friend, the neighbor across the street who's engaging in genocide. Okay. Right. It's putting your father first. This is our nation. This is a Christian nation in its roots. And we are adulterating ourselves to that system over there through this Defense Act.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, I've seen a number of the things that Joe Kent has said about this. And as I said before, this is just another example of Joe Kent batting 1,000 and just being right on with everything that he's been talking about. But I mean, as it relates to patriotism, I truly believe that it is most patriotic for us to fight against this specifically, because what I believe what this to be is anti-American and it's anti-Christian. And I love how you just laid that out and how and the actual effects that it's going to have on the everyday American person. Because when the state government of Israel is then going to be involved in these government contracts and these defense contractors, what you're then going to happen is, yes, you have a lot of American citizens that work for these companies. So what that means is that you're then going to have American citizens that are then bought and paid for by the state government of Israel. And then their politics, and that's going to affect whether we like it or not. Souls are on the line here. I keep saying this as it relates to Christian Zionism in America. Like,
amen.
Because this country, this foreign country, is implementing a Christian Zionism that just garners support for itself. And souls are on the line here, because if the American public is then going to be bought and paid for by Israel, and they actually do believe that their salvation is dependent. So if they believe their salvation and their living is dependent on this foreign state, then what the heck do you think is going to happen? And everything as it relates to Israel, everything is they consider everything an existential threat, and everything that they do is for their own survival. And when you look at things through that lens, then you can see, okay, what are they doing specifically? Who are they manipulating? What type of infiltration techniques are they carrying out here? Whether it be in the American body politic, media, or throughout the American public. And I mean, you said this is like a Paul Revere, like we're letting everybody know about this. I mean, this is something that I've been hooting and hollering about on my channel now for some time. And, again, I feel like I'm like kind of the king of segues today, but this is one of my biggest concerns as it relates to Turning Point USA in this post Charlie Kirk era, because what I see them as right now is as this machine and mechanism for this spread of Christian Zionism, which I feel is extremely detrimental to not just America, but it's leading people away from what is the truth. And therefore, as I said, souls are on the line.
You didn't see that in a more clear way, perhaps, of how they sat on the sidelines and just abandoned what Charlie stood for. You saw that most clearly in this Thomas Massey race, right? Thomas Massey was just the figurehead. He's also, by the way, him and Ro Khanna, a Democrat. This is what's crazy. Like, who was the one speaking up about Defense Bill 224? It's a Democrat, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey, okay? Like, I never thought in my wildest imagination I'd be like cheering on a Democrat in this instance, okay? But Massey just lost his race. We all know he got blown away by Miriam Adelson, Jewish Zionist funding, okay? Clear as day. What did TPUSA do? They sat on the sidelines. They did not endorse him. They did not speak up for Thomas Massey, going in completely against what Charlie loved Thomas, right? And we had to watch this. And it's almost like the
well, in fact, they put out content justifying President Trump's criticism of Massey, talking about how he's been anti-MAGA, and they went along with the President Trump talking points. I mean, they did. They aligned themselves with that side. And what I also find very, very interesting is we just had Lindsey Graham's race down in South Carolina, to which he won. And Charlie Kirk spent a lot of time on that Charlie Kirk show speaking out against the neocon warmonger that was Lindsey Graham. And I'm just curious. I'm asking you, did you see anything from Turning Point USA or the Charlie Kirk show speaking out about the Lindsey Graham election down in South Carolina?
No,
yeah,
I didn't. Maybe they did, but
I noticed they didn't. they didn't say a word about it. It's just another great example of the shift in direction that they've taken since Charlie passed away.
And we're feeling it. The American people are feeling it, and souls are at stake, because we need these freedom fighters out there. And we're about to lose Massey, right? He's gonna be gone in January, though he's gonna go out in a firestorm, right? Which he already started to do, bringing up the US's liberty 2 days ago. But we need these people. We need our organizations to back them. Okay, so this is kind of a Paul Revere moment. I thought about this. People want an analogy. Here's a question for you, Zach. Where does the CIA stop and the Mossad begin? Can anyone answer that question?
I mean,
seriously, is there really a separation of the intelligence services? I mean, I know there is in theory, but for practical purposes, they're so closely aligned, right?
Yeah. I mean, especially with what we're seeing in this intelligence and technological merger with the state of Israel. I mean, I think when it comes down to it, like if we're all about sharing information with each other, then it would follow that. I mean, honestly, it just seems like they're somewhat working together. And then as it relates to just the overall free speech question and censorship and identification of what they consider to be disinformation, misinformation, and threats, they have the same goal. So, I mean, whether they're working together or not, I mean, that's one thing. But as far as them having similar and the same goals, I think that we can clearly see that alignment.
Yeah, and it's ultimately, it has worked against the American people.
That's it. I mean, that's always who gets left holding the bag. Who always gets left holding the bag is just the everyday American person, and that's ultimately where this is where we've arrived. This is where we have arrived, and ultimately, I mean, we talk a lot about Charlie Kirk. I talk a lot about Charlie Kirk. When it comes down to it, what Charlie actually was and what he really stood against was what he stood for was the everyday American person. He was the most influential voice for young people in America, but he was the most influential voice for the everyday American person. Right. And what he spoke out about a lot, and ultimately what got him in some of the most trouble is that, and this speaks a lot to his alignment with Tucker Carlson towards the end of his life. What they were talking about was more so the economic and financial order of things, less so about some of the more kind of, geopolitical problems as it relates to like the state government of Israel and our alliance with them, etc. I mean, granted, he talked a lot about that, but when he and Tucker were really getting after, because he recognized this in the young people that he was talking to, was the angst and the suffering and the pain that a lot of these young people are going through, or what you want to say the everyday American person is going through, as life gets harder and harder for us to make ends meet, while while those at the top and the rich and powerful, whether you want to call them the elites or whether or not you want to call them the donor class, whatever you want to call them, continue to operate this machine that gets them richer and powerful, that always leaves the everyday American person just holding the bag. Like, ultimately, that is the issue. I think that was the issue that Charlie Kirk was really targeting. That's the issue that Tucker Carlson has really been targeting. And that issue right there has really got them. I think it puts a target on their backs for sure. I personally, in my opinion, believe that is precisely why Charlie Kirk was targeted, because he became a threat to the order of things. And when you ask the question, it's like, okay, who is in charge of actually controlling the order of things? That's when you start to look at, okay, well, what's the point of the military-industrial complex? What's the purpose of the state government of Israel? Well, we need a military industrial machine that can facilitate forever wars, that can allow this government and state contractor and all of these defense contractors, this whole money machine, to continue to operate and move. So you ask yourself, well, why have we had never-ending wars in the Middle East for the last, 25, 30 years? It's like, because they've identified the money-making machine that allows this whole thing to continue. And this is what causes the whole financial order of things. And those who are rich and powerful have gotten rich and powerful because of this machine. So when you start to poke at the little things in the machine that are causing all of this, which is ultimately why criticism or dissent about the state government of Israel makes you an evil demon, anti-Semite, ultimately is what it comes down to. This is why us as Catholics specifically serve to be such threats to this machine, because we ultimately are not going to go along with this religious belief that they continue to push, which is that of Christian Zionism, which is just the religion that allows this machine to facilitate. So when it all comes down to it, we are living in a time to where free speech and censorship is becoming a reality for a lot of us that are on the more critical and dissenting side, or are not going to go along with this specific religious belief, because ultimately that is the biggest threat to the control and the order of things that they currently are sitting in ultimately control over.
We, the American people, the lowly people, are left behind when these powers that be, industrial complex, the intelligence services, or the Zionist lobby, whatever the big government, okay, the big, not just we, the American lowly people, are left behind, but who else is left behind? The first Catholic president was left behind, okay? JFK. The moment he started to stand up to what was happening, he wanted to investigate the nuclear site there in Israel. And, of course, CIA was pissed with him for what happened in the Bay of Pigs. And also, he did not want to increase the war in Vietnam, okay? We now know the CIA was obviously involved on November 22nd, 1963, okay?
Yeah. John, left behind, taken out, silenced, pushed down, any of these terms that you want to use for it. That's what happens. That's what happens. So just imagine if we're able to flip it and we're able to create a Christian or even a Catholic order of things. That's not a Zionist or an Israeli order of things, right? And I think that's ultimately what we need to be about, right? That's what we need to be fighting for.
I'm borrowing a phrase said about the United States Marines. Said at Iwo Jima, there is no greater friend and no worse enemies. Referencing the United States Marines and what they can do. They're a great friend, and if you become their enemy, you're gonna be scared of that, right? They're gonna make you pay. Same can be said in a similar way to a Christian, a Catholic, right? Because we are the greatest friend of a republic, because we all know our ultimate allegiance lies with God. But as soon as you try to take that and make the government God, we will be your biggest enemy, because we will die defending that, right?
Absolutely.
So let's. I know we're coming to the end of your segment where you have time for us. Let's talk about a Christian again. The latest update about this Christian martyred on September 10th. and what's going on. I saw, just kind of get us going and kind of a refresher for our audience. Let's play a couple minutes from the clip where Jimmy Dore was talking with Tucker Carlson and just said it in a real succinct way. If you haven't been following the whole case the past 10 months, here's like a 2-minute summary of just how crazy the official story is right now. And I'm going to get Zach to comment on this, because Zach, this is your niche, and you've been doing such a great job at bringing this to light. So let's play that clip.
The new Seth Rich, you're not allowed to ask questions about that.
Charlie Kirk is evangelical, pretty darn anti-gay, and then Glenn Greenwald comes out with a gay sex tape, and Charlie Kirk is the first guy to be like, Glenn Greenwald's a good man. Man, I thought that was, makes me emotional thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie had started to have an awakening.
Oh, you think?
He had a lot younger than I had it.
Yeah.
And so that's why they had to kill him. And when I say they, I mean multiple. There was a conspiracy to kill him. It wasn't some guy, Tyler Robinson, with his grandpa's rifle, which was never fired, which is why they couldn't find that rifle. You have to swallow so much stuff to believe the story that the establishment is pushing for Charlie Kirk's assassination. Yeah. You have to think that this, first of all, a 30-06 bullet didn't take his head clean off or leave a drive-through window in the back of his neck. Somehow he had a miracle. His miracle bullet, remember that? Hey, can you give me an explanation of why his head didn't blow off without a miracle? Do you have an actual explanation? No. So, but it goes back to, so this guy gets to the campus. He drives all of a sudden he wakes up one day and goes, you know what, I'm going to commit the biggest public assassination in the last 60 years. He drives to the campus. He finds the open stairwell. It's open. Nobody's there. He brings the gun up, but it's too big, so he has to take it apart and put it in his backpack. Still too big for his backpack, so he has to put it down his pant legs, is what they tell. But then if he did, he couldn't go up the steps because he couldn't bend his knees. So I don't know how he got it up there. Nobody will tell me. So he gets up there, and then he changes his clothes. He's up on top of that roof for 10 minutes. That's according to the governor. He was up there for 8 to 10 minutes. Nobody sees him. The cops don't see him. The $1 million security team doesn't see him. Nobody sees him except people in the crowd did see him. And they don't tell you that. People, just like in Butler, Pennsylvania, people in the crowd saw him. Guess who didn't see him? The cops, the local cops, the state cops, the Secret Service. People see it. So, and then he puts the gun together. He lines up the shot, puts a scope on it. By the way, if that scope was on it, he couldn't fire that gun because of the safe. Anyway, so he lines it up, takes the shot, hits it perfectly, takes the gun apart, leaves the screwdriver there, puts it under a towel, Spider-Man's his way off the top of a building, runs across campus with the gun apparently under a towel. Nobody sees this. He runs into the woods, puts the gun back together again without the screwdriver. He's a regular MacGyver, this guy. And then he hides the gun in the backyard of a house owned by Palantir. And if you think anything else besides that, you're a crazy Jew-hating conspiracy nut.
Let's cut.
Do you know that
So you can watch the rest of the clip on there, but I thought it was just a great summary of what some of the absurdities on there. So what's your take on where this whole investigation stands, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat how Jimmy Dore just laid that out. But I mean, my reaction there is similar to Tucker's. It's like, one of my favorite things about what Jimmy Dore just said right there is the amount that you have to swallow in order to believe what we're being told right now, that this is just that Charlie Kirk was taken out by just some lone wolf assassin who had, a transgender, lover. I mean, is especially what we've been through. And this is an argument that I've been making for some time, especially what the American people have been through. Especially, and you mentioned it too, as we all went through COVID, which was, the biggest psyop that any of us have ever experienced in our lifetime. But at this point, I just don't understand how a prudent and discerning person would just take what they're giving us at this point. And this has kind of been my position all along as it relates to the Charlie Kirk assassination. Like, my position has been, there are a lot of discrepancies which create this circumstantial web of evidence, which certainly cast doubt on Tyler Robinson being the lone wolf assassin of Charlie Kirk. I believe, for reasons that I stated previously, that Charlie Kirk was specifically targeted. I believe he was killed. I believe bigger players were certainly involved in this. And as it relates to what Jimmy Dore was talking about there with regard to the specific evidence as of right this second, people can hoot and holler about all of this evidence against Tyler Robinson that will come out or that is there. The reality is that none of it has been provided to the public yet. And as of right this second, there is zero evidence, zero hard evidence that puts Tyler Robinson as the individual on that rooftop taking that shot. So again, you can sit here and say, oh, all of the evidence is overwhelming, which you hear that a lot. None of it exists for the American public to see yet. So for anybody that's out there saying that, I would question, what are you referring to? Because as of right this second, there is zero evidence that puts Tyler Robinson on that rooftop. You're basically just going by hearsay with what the authorities are telling you. And I think personally, that is not a prudent strategy given everything that we have been through. Now, when it comes to the trial and we see just, oh my gosh, like this is all of this exists and we didn't see it, we didn't know. And Tyler Robinson somehow proves to be guilty. If they're somehow, as Jimmy Dore says there, able to prove that Tyler Robinson took that shot with a 30-06 that caused that wound specifically on Charlie Kirk in the way that he died with no exit hole, with, everything that we saw there from the front, all the shirt motion and the necklace behavior and all of that good stuff. Like, I mean, I don't think we have time to get in the weeds specifically of all of those different things. But if they are somehow able to do that, which I think that that's just very unlikely, then what are we as the American public supposed to think? And I think this just speaks to the whole larger issue of, again, the lack of trust that the American people have for our institutions and for our government to operate in either a competent or an ethical way, which they have proven not to be able to do.
I was in conversation a few months ago with someone very close to both Charlie and Erica. And I was trying to bring to their attention some of these basic questions which you and Jimmy Dore laid out. And I won't say the person's name just out of respect, but this person's reaction was so adverse to people like you, people like Candace, Barron, others. And I asked, like, why? Like, and their response was, like, and they know both Erica and they knew Charlie really, really well. The daily, they were kind of daily communication with both of them. Okay. And I said, hey, like, they're bringing solid information. And the response was, well, what do we think who do they think they are? Do you think this is Watergate? Exact quote. I'm like, well, kind of. And then they said, we should just let the FBI do their job. Okay. To which I responded, I said, have you been sitting under a rock the past 6 years? Like we just went through COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So it's I pray every single day that this truth comes light. It is so important. This is not just some random murder that you guys are just following down some rabbit hole that you're just really happen to be interested in the murder of some kid, who's kind of famous out there. This is so tied into this country's future, patriotism, America, because a lot of signs are starting to lead about who is behind it. And we need this out there. My biggest thing, one of my biggest red flags through this, one of the last things I'll say is the fact that Joe Kent was removed and stopped from investigating the foreign influences on this assassination in October. It was Kash Patel and Dan Bongino who stopped him from investigating it. We know Dan Bongino's wife obviously is one of the schedulers for Andrew Colvin. This just rubs me the wrong way. If there was foreign involvement in the attack into one of our greatest citizens and my friend, we want to know. We want to know.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the more frustrating things that I've heard, like spokesperson for Turning Point USA, Andrew Colvin, talk about as it relates to what you just said there. It's like, yeah, look, JFK, we get it. We understand that there might have been a conspiracy. 9/11, we get it. COVID, we get it. But this one, we're going to trust the FBI. It's just like, what? It's like, what? Like everything that we have been through for the last, 50 to 70 years, you're going to say that now is the time for us to trust. And then, I love that you brought that up with Joe Kent. You have literally the director of the National Counterterrorism Center say it's their responsibility, because everyone always likes to come out and say, well, Joe Kent didn't have any investigative authority when it comes to the Charlie Kirk assassination case, which also is not true because he was actually given access to the investigation. And that's one of the things that pissed Kash Patel off about this whole thing. So he actually did have more access than a typical national director of counterterrorism would have in that situation. So that's an argument that you could always make against that point. But even so, it is the responsibility of the director of national counterterrorism to bring in all the leads and then give them to the investigative authorities and recommend to them the direction that they should take. What happened is that the NCT gave everything over to the FBI and said, hey, these are the things that you should look into. And the FBI then turned around and said, nah, we're not going to pursue that. And that was ultimately the problem that Joe Kent had too with Kash Patel. So their conflict was twofold. It was twofold because one, Joe Kent had access to the investigation, which normally is not the case from someone in his position. That Kash Patel didn't like that. And then two, Joe Kent ultimately believed that the FBI was not pursuing leads that they should pursue. So really what this comes down to is you have literally just a disagreement between two heads within the government as to how this investigation should have played out. And let's just say I align more with the Joe Kent interpretation than I do of the Kash Patel interpretation, just given my discernment and level of prudence when it comes to who I believe to be more of an ethical and honest player in this whole arena.
How are we supposed to trust somebody who sat on the Epstein files?
Well, there you go.
Kash Patel, you know, and it's defined there. And it's just, I give, you know, we'll wrap this up here. I know you got to go, but just, we're so grateful, for you and everybody else is just out there is doing their part because we've got to speak up. Because if we don't speak up, we're going to lose this chance. Free speech, freedom of speech, right? Which is so under attack right now. They're coming so hard after us. Like people in China can't do what we do now. Okay. So we've got to use it as a God-given gift to speak up and call this out because, you know, the Charlie Kirk saga is only just beginning. And, you know, there's wrapped up into his martyrdom as a gift in a certain way because we're going to be able to see what is behind, what's influencing this country. Final thoughts before we let you go, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, you know, ultimately, I think people do have the tendency nowadays, especially after Charlie Kirk was killed, to maybe put him on a pedestal that he shouldn't necessarily be on. Like everything that he said was infallible. It's like, look, Charlie was a man and he had flaws just like each and every one of us. But what it comes down to is that I think with regard to his assassination, just given where we are in American history, we as a country are not able to and will not be able to move forward and build a thriving and stable nation without knowing the truth about what happened to him. Because as it relates to Charlie, like the situation with Charlie is just another issue on top of so many of these historical issues that we have been lied about time and time again. And this is a point to where we feel as the everyday American person that one of us was actually taken out. We feel as though one of our representatives and one of us was actually taken out. And if the institutions and those in charge do not deliver true justice, and that's ultimately what we're pushing for. We're pushing for true justice. If Tyler Robinson gets convicted and is given the death penalty, and he and the truth dies with him, is buried with him, that is not true justice for Charlie Kirk. Okay? I will admit, I believe that Tyler Robinson was involved in some way. But do I believe that he is the specific lone actor in this event? Absolutely, I do not. And it would be a travesty. It would be an injustice if Tyler Robinson is given the death penalty before we know the full truth about what happened to Charlie Kirk. And I just believe that where we are as a nation and in this current political and cultural arena that we are in right now, we will not be able to move forward. There will be significant divides if we are not told the truth about what happened to Charlie Kirk, because the everyday American person, as it relates to this divide between the everyday American person and the elites in this country who think they can get away with whatever the heck they want, you know, it's not going to end well. At this point, we are so sick and tired of it. It's not going to end well if we are not told and given the full truth and the full implications about what happened to Charlie.
It's not 1963 anymore. It's 2026.
Nope. Yep.
We have so many more. We're an awakened generation, and we're going to fight for it. Zach, we're going to let you go. You're those sticking around. We get to talk about the fact that Catholics for Catholics was brought up on the Megyn Kelly and Sean Ryan show, to the world's largest podcasters. So we're talking about that after Zach leaves. But Zach, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it so much. I look forward to seeing you soon. And next time you go to Rome, make sure to invite us.
Sounds good, John. It was good to see you, and thanks for having me. Talk soon.
Absolutely. So let's play those sticking around the after party here. We're going to play the clip now just of Sean Ryan. I love Sean Ryan. Okay. And I watched a lot of his stuff, and he talking with Megyn Kelly, had an interview, and guess what? We came up in conversation. I want to address that because a lot of people messaged me like, hey, did you see that you were on one of the largest podcasters in the world? They were talking about Catholics for Catholics. And here's what they had to say, because there was mixed reaction. Let's play that clip.
Now they're all talking about Catholicism, which I think is hilarious.
Well, I mean,
let's talk about Catholic. Oh, you're a Catholic all of a sudden?
there's no way to be in the Trump administration without being a yes man. You won't last.
The fastest growing Christian denomination in the world right now. Now all of a sudden we're going to advertise that we're Catholic? Right.
I'll tell you.
Have you heard of this organization, Catholics for Catholics?
No, what do they do?
I mean, it's Catholics for Catholics. If they're going to get into politics.
Oh, that's not a good idea.
And so now you're going to give it all these politicians that are claiming they're Catholic all of a sudden, you know?
Well, I mean, JD is a recent convert, but Marco Rubio's a lifelong Catholic, right? He's a Hispanic guy from Cuba. Like I don't know how observant he is. But I'll tell you what I think.
I don't see him standing up for any Christian rights. Oh, you're a Catholic all of
there you have it. That's the clip. So Sean, he I know his people, and I've actually we communicated briefly after this clip, and he contrary to what it seemed like he does in my organization, right? And he was bringing up in the context of he's looking around at what's going on, and there are just so many people who are Christian Catholics who are not speaking up on certain issues and need to be, right? And coherence of life is something that's really important for Sean. And I think he's, for instance, talking about the Epstein files, like the lack of church leaders addressing that. Like it's a major black spot on our country, right? We should be speaking up for those victims. And Megyn's reaction to right off the bat was like, oh, a political organization, that's bad. Now, obviously, I don't think Megyn really means that too, because as a Catholic, obviously, we're supposed to be involved in the political situation around it. We have to, like Christ incarnated himself. That's what Catholics for Catholic intends to do. We want to be a voice on that public space in the modern day Acropolis that speaks up on behalf of what we believe in, and ultimately for Christ to bring people to the faith. Okay. So she probably took it the wrong way, but I'm sure if we sat down and had a conversation, Megyn and I, she would see, oh yeah, totally makes sense what you guys do. And that's a great thing. So I just wanted to address that briefly because that did come up, that we were brought up there on that show. And I love a lot what Sean does, and Megyn to a certain extent as well. So anyway, that's something. You can watch the full interview there. It's worth the watch. Let's end on a positive note. What's going to happen this couple days? Okay. Because we talk about dark stuff, invasion, synagogue of Satan, what that actually means. But how do you be part of the synagogue of Christ? The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, our shepherds in this country, are leading the way in this aspect. On Friday, what's going to happen on Friday? I'm going to read the article of what they're up to. June 11th, as part of the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration, the U.S. bishops will consecrate the United States of America to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Parishes around the country are encouraged to join the bishops in celebrating the consecration of our nation to the Sacred Heart. They're going to be gathering in Florida. They're going to do that. And I just thought that is just the way to go, way to lead the way. That is what we absolutely should be doing, okay? Because it's devotion to the heart of Christ, which kind of really had a great rebirth in the 17th century, primarily in France as the devotion spread. of what it actually mean. What did Christ think? What did he feel? Like that's what, whenever you read this, the scriptures, okay, which all of us should be doing every single day before we look at anything else, is look at the Bible, look at the readings of the day, download an app with the mass readings, listen to them. What is Christ saying? What is the heart of Christ saying to me? Okay. Because, and you know, we talked also about the Holy Land, why it's important. It's where Christ actually walked. But you know what the real ultimate Holy Land is? It's every single Catholic chapel out there where the Lord in his Eucharistic body is exposed, because that heart, that the Eucharist is Christ's heart. You sit there for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, time stops there. Time will pass by so fast when you're just sitting there, your phone's off, you're just looking at him, he's looking at you. We've got to get back to that, because that devotion to Christ's heart in the Eucharist is what will save our souls and ultimately help America. Okay, so I want to leave you with that and just to kind of like remind us that that's what we should be doing. Concrete action Catholics for Catholics is doing is we are, and if there are quick questions at the end, you can ask them now. Anything you want to ask about the show, what we brought up here, just in general, what's going on in America today, you can put in the chat. But we are doing a billboard campaign. It's our third annual billboard campaign that we are doing. We've done it every single year in the month of June. Why? It's obvious, because it was hijacked, a month that was hijacked by the demonic forces who wanted to push Pride Month down the throats of our children and just completely eschew their vision of their gender that God gave them. So we pushed back with devotion to the Sacred Heart, right? Obviously, our very first event that we ever did was in LA. It was against the Dodgers, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, on the Feast of the Sacred Heart. So we have a special connection here at this organization with the month of June. And so we launched a billboard. Now, what is the theme for this year's billboard? One nation under Christ. You may say, well, hey, isn't the national motto one nation under God? Like, what's the reason behind that? Why are you guys doing Christ? Here's why. We, at the time of the Declaration, when our founding fathers produced these documents, right, everybody understood that the God that we referenced was Christ. We were a Christian nation, okay? Here's just some brief facts about that as you look at that billboard. The original state constitutions, get this, original state constitutions professed who? They professed Jesus Christ as king. A Christian statement of faith was required to serve in public office at the time of the Revolution. Our Declaration of Independence is written as a prayer to the judge of the world. Jesus of the Declaration for Bible believing was for Christians back then. We all know that Jesus is the judge of the world. So the Declaration ends with a reference to the supreme judge, to Christ. In other words, our original founding document references God 4 times and derives all principles from biblical law. John Adams said our nation was established only for moral, religious people. So who will inherit the legacy of this great nation? Okay. The point is, there are so much signs that at the very beginning, we were a Christian people, which allowed for these tremendous documents to be produced. Okay. So with this billboard, we're kind of like getting away from, it's just the random God out there, like, your God, my God, whoever you interpret God to be. Because guess what? A large percent of the population in this country today thinks that their interpretation of God requires them to kill people on behalf of jihad, right? Islam. Okay. So it's very important to define who that God is. Well, the founding fathers knew that God had a name. That God's name is Jesus Christ, born in Bethlehem and now alive today in every single Catholic chapel around the world. So this campaign is kind of to re-emphasize, remind the populace today of who the God is in America that we are under. It's Christ. Only Christ is only one God. It's Jesus. So this billboard campaign is always super popular every year. You can contribute to it, support the campaign, get it up in a billboard in a city near you, and just take this home. Like, let's fight for this. I'll end on that note. And just keep that in mind. This Friday is the Feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. You can watch what the bishops will be doing as they consecrate this nation. Consecrate your heart, consecrate your family, so that you are not part of the synagogue of Satan. We are part of the synagogue of Satan the moment that the spark of sanctifying grace leaves our soul through sin, specifically mortal sin. Be part of the synagogue of Christ, because that is what will get us to heaven, our ultimate goal. Thank you all. What a great show. Zach is an awesome man. Give him a lot of respect. We'll see you next time. Same place. God bless you all, and fight on.